Hallo, je kijkt of luistert naar Changemakers TV, een podcast waarin ik een jaar lang inspirerende leiders interview die zich inzetten voor een positieve verandering in de wereld. Samen met hun fans dragen zij bij aan de oplossing van een maatschappelijk probleem. Mijn naam is Irene Jansen en ik help leiders om changemakers te worden. Met behulp van een authentieke boodschap en een strategisch plan zetten zij met plezier een beweging in gang voor die positieve verandering. Daarmee creëren zij impact. Mijn volgende gast is internationaal online business coach Sigrun Gudjonsdottir. Als tiener volgde ze een naailes om haar eigen kleren te kunnen maken. Dat deed ze in een groep met 40-jarige vrouwen die allerlei dromen niet waarmaakten vanwege hun echtgenoot of kinderen. In diezelfde periode werd in haar land, IJsland, de eerste vrouwelijke president in de wereld gekozen. Sigrun realiseerde zich dat het uitzonderlijk was om een vrouwelijke president te hebben. Hoe kon het toch dat zoveel vrouwen hun dromen opgaven? Ze leerde dat een deel van het probleem is dat vrouwen minder zelfvertrouwen hebben dan mannen. Tijdens die naailes in een groep met 40-jarige moeders besloot ze dat zij altijd haar dromen zou volgen, wat er ook gebeurt. Sigrun volgde haar dromen door een internationaal online business te bouwen. Tegelijkertijd maakte ze het haar missie om vrouwen te helpen hun dromen te volgen met een eigen bedrijf. Vandaag hebben we het over How to turn your purpose into profit. Voor alle vrouwen die van hun bedrijf een droombedrijf willen maken.
Sigrun, it's so wonderful to see that you're here with us. The topic of the day is all female leadership or more feminine leadership. What's the difference? It's not just about women making the change, but it's also about doing it in our own authentic way, which is not, as all those pyramid organizations, those command and control organizations are used to. And I'm so happy to have you here today.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me, Irene.
Yes, well, thank you. Tell me, are you now in Iceland or are you in Switzerland? Because you're an online lifestyle entrepreneur and you just go from one place to the other, right?
I'm currently in Iceland right now. Yeah.
Aha, okay. So the first question I always ask is, what is your dream goal for a better society? What's your contribution to a better world?
Wow. I think that's a long answer, actually. So can I give a long answer to a short question?
You're so tricky.
Yeah.
I was telling myself, okay, with Sigrun, I just have to kind of like make sure that, I know you already started saying, I'm going to give a long answer.
I'm going to give a long answer to a short question.
Go ahead.
So I come from Iceland, and that's, well, according to all statistics, we are the most gender equal society in the world. But, if you live here, you don't feel it as equal as it kind of looks on the paper. And I think since I was a child, I have been aware of this inequality. And still, there were some good seeds planted along the way. I experienced when the first female president in the world, or the first democratically elected female president. Well, we had some other presidents, but they were not democratically elected. She was the first democratically elected female president in the world. I was 9 years old, and my mother took me to her house the day after she got elected. And there were about 100, 200 people outside the house, kind of cheering her on. She came onto the balcony and said, thank you, thank you. And it became a normal thing that you have a female president. She was a president for 16 years. So even if people went against her in elections, she just won again, or they didn't even try to go against her because he was popular. And it became a very normal thing. So it was not like, oh, women can't do this or that. And even though my parents had more traditional roles at home, I never got the feeling there was something I couldn't do. It was more like that my mother wanted us to study So if somebody I had the idea for a while to be a fashion designer and my sister to be a hairdresser, and my mom like, no, you go and study, because they had not studied, my parents. So it became her mission that her children all study at university. So that was the only thing. But it was never like, oh, you can't do this or that. But when I was 16 years old, I was very kind of sewing my own clothes and everything as a teenager. And I did courses on sewing classes. And I was always with much older women. I was the only one who was so young. And because I did not have a driver's license, obviously, I was too young and it was far away. So my parents had to drive me to the sewing class and pick me up again when it was finished. There was no buses going there directly. And the women were my age now, 40 something. We don't talk exactly what age, do we? And no, I'm 46, and they were probably 46 or something, these women. And first, I didn't mind they were older. I was used to being around older people. But then they started to talk about everything they had not done. So they were like, oh, this was my dream because I got married, or I didn't do it because I got kids, or I didn't do it because I couldn't study, or I didn't do it. But there were all kinds of reasons, which translated in my mind to excuses. And but they also blamed, I felt society was a bit of a blame too. Like, it was not the support there. Like, why can a man follow their dream and not a woman? Something clicked in my head, and whether it's true or not, I was 16-year-old. I was very easily influenced and in a vulnerable time where you're developing a lot of ideas. And this created frustration in me and anger, disappointment about the world, society as a whole. I swore to myself, for instance, not to have children. I thought, like, well, if it's one of the reasons they're not doing their thing, well, then I not have children. So that's checked off. Of course, that's not true, because I truly believe women can do anything also with children today. But, as a child, as a 16-year-old, I saw, well, that's obviously something you kind of just have to not have if you want to follow your dreams. But more importantly than the children topic, for me, it was, I'm never going to let anyone stop me. So I'm never going to use excuses or have someone tell me I can't do something. And it was so strong. I was also like, okay, I could totally imagine having a partner in my life. But I said, if at any point a partner stops me from following my dream, that person is not my right partner. And this was a defining moment. I don't know. I think we all have defining moments. So I was 16 years old, and this became my mission in life. There was also a big movement in Iceland. The women were not going up in the political parties as much as, we wanted. I was only 16 years old, so I couldn't vote or anything. But what the Icelandic women did, they just founded a female party. So the female party was not necessarily right or left. It was probably more left, if anything, for obvious reasons. But the female party was, I would have to check Wikipedia how long it was on, but probably for 10 years, we had a female party just to ensure that women would be put into positions in the other parties on the list. So once that was kind of achieved, the female party was closed down. They stopped it. So it was just on this period. And I'm 16-year-old. I'm experiencing these women who don't follow their dreams for all kinds of excuses. And then on the other hand, at the same time, the female party movement is very strong to push the other political parties to put women on their list. That was the only mission. Their mission was not to run the government. And it worked. It worked. So it pushed the political parties to do that. Now we have really 50-50%.
Wonderful. I mean, I don't think it's not to be. Well, Belgium is pretty close, although, but they forced it with the quotas. But you're not in politics at all. So how did this experience translate into your dream goal, your mission today, to contribute to a better world, basically?
Well, it was obvious that women need more encouragement than men. There are not many. It's unusual. I realized it later on, to be 16-year-old and says, I'm going to follow all my dreams. I'm not going to let anyone, children or husband or ever, stop me from following my dreams. And this became my mission. Now I realized later on in life, it's become my mission to do this for women. So first it was just my goal as I'm 16-year-old. I'm not going to let anyone stop me. Mm-hmm. And I realized along the way that this is my goal for women in general. I want to inspire women to not see these things, husbands and children and whatever, skills, maybe lack of skills or technical skills, to stop them from following their dreams. All of these things can be solved, Well, first of all, you need to pick a partner that believes in equality and believes in everyone having the dream. And then you can make it work anyway. So I do have now 2 stepsons and I have a husband. So I do have children and a husband, but he is there with me every step of the way and has never stopped me doing anything, even if I have crazy ideas.
Wonderful. That was one of the questions indeed. How did that work out? So it did work out okay for you. Particularly, you do this now as a business coach, an online business coach, and you help a lot of women who are at the point of developing an idea in a business, or going further with their business. So what needs to happen for all those women to not let them stop and really go for putting all those ideas as business ideas, because that's what you help them with?
Yeah, so there were a few things that I decided along the way, because I could have picked the direction of, I could have become a minister for gender equality or something, but I realized that I can make even more impact, or at least the impact that is probably more fitting to my character, is to actually be a role model myself. So one thing I see is a lack of role models. Women, or just anyone for that matter, needs role models. We need someone who's a few steps ahead of us. We need to look at someone and say, like the female president, a good example. I was 9 years old. I see someone become a president, and she is of the same gender as me. So, well, if she can do it, I can do it.
You can relate to someone. Yeah. That's why I wanted to go to the US when I saw, the US I thought is going to get a female president. I felt like I need to be there, because it has this, regardless of political ideas, it has this enormous impact of just having someone there who's doing it and you can relate to her.
And I think women need role models. And Gina Davis, for instance, has the whole campaign about having more women as female movie directors and things like that. I think it's all a part of the puzzle. And I see my role as being a role model for building a lifestyle business, taking my dream, my passion, and turning it into a business. And not, people don't have to be my clients to be inspired. I have a TEDx talk, I have a podcast, a blog post. Like, my mission is much bigger than just the few people who work with me. It's much, much bigger. The idea is that you plant a seed that this is possible. So the more role models I can even, let's say, create or help create, like, if we plant the seed everywhere and people just believe this is possible. So role models is a big thing for me. We need more role models in all areas. And then obviously by working with women and men, I've noticed something along the way, is that we need a community. So for some reason, we can put the researchers on this. I am not a researcher myself, even though I've studied a lot, but I decided not to do a PhD. Women have, compared to men, a lack of self-confidence. Now, is that going to improve with role models? That's where the community comes in. This lack of self-confidence, or let's say lower self-confidence than generally a man has, can be helped with a community. We need to kind of check in. Am I on the right track? Does this idea work? Versus the male clients I work with, hey, I'm going to sell this course for $2,000. I'm like, really? Wow. And another woman selling the same course, she's like, do you think I can charge 500? And I'm like, sure. Maybe how about selling it for 1,000? You know, and you see this contrast of discussions. It's so big. What's going on here? There's people, highly qualified people, and we women pull ourselves down, and the men are like, oh, yeah, let's do it. Of course, I'm generalizing, and we have both.
But indeed, like there's this issue of women and men and feminine and masculinity, and of course, you have a lot of women who have more of these kind of have a very strong masculine drive, and men who are more with these feminine. But I think I always say, like, if you have 100 men in the room and 100 women in the other, like all together, those feminine leadership skills, like listening and connecting and all these sort of things, you will find them more in the group with women. And then you can even discuss, is this because we're born differently, or is it maybe society that inspires us more or encourages us more to use those tools? Because I think at the end of the day, we all need to find the balance. We all need a bit of both. But so we have this wonderful community here of Changemakers, and it's a bit of a mix of people who are entrepreneurs who have ideas in their head and are thinking maybe about starting a business. There are some politicians in the group as well. Some people working in organizations, but particularly if they're watching right now and they're like, okay, I have an idea that is going to help the world. It will make it more, we'll reduce our waste, or we do something about healthcare and how organizations in healthcare are organized, or whatever. I want to reduce the plastic soup in the ocean. Yeah. That all sounds like huge ideas, and you could say it's my passion. But how do you do that then? How do you say, okay, I'm not going to let anybody stop me. I need to turn this into a profitable plan. Yeah.
How do you get started? Well, if you have to sell your idea first to one person before you can even consider changing the world. So if you can't convince one person of your idea, then you got to find a different angle. So you always start with one person. And then you start with another person, and suddenly it becomes a group. And I am teaching people how to build an online business. So obviously, in the end, I want people to create an online course, but I don't want them to create an online course on day one. I want them to take it step by step. And this is with any business idea. Just last night, I was talking to a friend of mine. He's helping tech startups in Silicon Valley. And an engineer sits down and just comes up with an idea and thinks it will sell. And they realize after they've created the software or the product that nobody wants to buy it. It's the same thing as changing the world. You got to have buy-in before you form the concept completely. Whether you're selling a product or service or a concept of changing the world, you got to have the buy-in. So the first thing is to talk to as many people as possible about your idea. Don't be worried about somebody stealing it, because that's unlikely to happen. It's more important that you become known for that idea. And then by talking to as many people as possible, some will be like, yes, I want to help you do this. Well, because I'm all about turning passion to profits, it's about then getting your first paying clients and doing it step by step. That's why I talk about the 7 stages of profitable online business. I came up with a model of where you kind of go from stage 0 to 6 in building your business. And it's pretty much how I did it. For a whole year, I worked one-on-one with clients. Then another year or so, I was working mainly in groups. And now I am making a transition again to an online program. And why do I find it important to scale? It's exactly for this reason. The more people I can touch and plant the seed of this is possible, the more people are out there making it possible for others. So if I just one-on-one with, because then my world is really, really small. So the scale is not just like, oh yeah, you can make more revenue. No, the scale is in my mind to touch more, plant more seeds.
That's what we've been talking a lot about how to increase your impact. And I think that a lot of change makers are struggling with it, or are thinking about how can I have a big impact. And part of having big impact is being able to work with a lot of people, or to inspire a lot of people. And both in a community like this, or like the one you have, but also as a client, because if you can really, give your best to, to whoever you are working with, then you can help them to do their little bit in making a change, basically.
Yeah.
In the world.
It's about the ripple effect. So for a long time, I thought, should I do a podcast? Should I not do a podcast? But once I've changed my mind, like, well, I'm touching more people, whether they turn into a client or not, I've planted the seed, and, it has this ripple effect. So my mission is bigger than just, of course, I think people have to be able to live from their passion. So even if you're a change maker, we cannot just live off air and drink water. Well, water is free in Iceland, at least.
Not here.
Yeah, not there. So, but I believe you gotta be able to live from what you are passionate about. And if you want to do charity, let's say, or do something that's beyond it, you can do that as well. I could decide to take a portion of my revenue and do something else with it that maybe also is for female entrepreneurs, maybe in areas where I know they will not be able to afford my program. Or for instance, I have a scholarship and things like that. So you can always do there could be a charity on top of what you're doing, but I think you first have to see, how can I live from this? And how can I, because also paying for something is an exchange, it's an energy. And I think when people are invested on both sides, so, you sell something, so you're invested that the person is successful, and the person investing in you paying, they are invested that this relationship or this program works out, that there is bigger impact than if people just get everything for free.
Sure. There is, though, sometimes this feeling that if you're doing it, I was talking yesterday evening with a researcher. She's the first researcher in the Netherlands to crowdfund her whole research. She's a child's rights activist. And we didn't do it on the air, but afterwards we had a little discussion. Because if you're so in it with your heart, and you feel like everybody should be in it with his or her heart, sometimes it's like it's hard to put in the money or so. I don't know. It's like I think a lot of people who do something from their passion to make a change in the world, there's a bit of a struggle. What does that mean for the money bit? And how do you see that?
Well, maybe because I came from the angle right away that I have to translate my passion into profits, that I didn't have that, let's say, problem. I never had that issue in my head. Like I said, this got to be a business. But I spent months and months in Facebook groups and doing free webinars without charging for anything. So yes, maybe I had to make a little switch myself. And what typically happens, there's a small percentage of people who actually buy from you. The rest on your email list, or the rest of the people, are not going to buy from you. And I just see, well, that's a part of my influence. So you can see it in a positive way, and other people say, "Oh, it's horrible that so few people buy." I say, "Well, no, it's kind of you are making the pie bigger, and you are planting a seed, whether they become your client or not." Yeah, but the danger is, let's say your mission. Yeah,
this morning you spoke about the wave. You're making a wave.
Yeah, you're making a wave, a ripple effect. But let's say your mission is something that is difficult to translate into money. You got to find an angle or a way. So crowdfunding is one kind of angle to get some research covered, or and there is so many ways to for instance, write a story about something. So let's say you're wanting to make some change. You can still write a book about it. You can still find an angle in it. That's something people want to learn. So let's say this woman who did the crowdfunding, I'm assuming it was a successful crowdfunding.
Yes, she's doing her research now with the crowdfunding.
Well, let's say a rest of her change is not someone people can pay for. Like if you're a child's rights activist, I don't know who's going to pay you for. Maybe somebody wants to pay for the book if she's writing a book, but if her crowdfunding was successful, she can teach other change makers how to do crowdfunding. There is always an angle of where you can monetize, and it may not be exactly your passion, but it's a side, the business around it. Of course, assuming you are successful at what you do.
Sure. But I feel, I can't really talk for her, but I mean, I feel that sometimes change makers really feel that when you explain the money exchange as a sort of an energy, and you put in your heart and your money, and then this sort of thing. But I think it is often felt like once the money comes in, it's tainted or something like that, or it's not from the heart anymore. Like when I talk about a lot of change makers that have big ideas for the world, they feel like I feel this sort of tension. But I understand that you don't really recognize that, or
no, maybe there's also another part of me. I had a bad experience as a teenager. It all happens when you're a teenager for some reason. I gave money to it was actually like a church collection for children in Africa or something. Mm-hmm. And the managing director of that church or the foundation stole the money. And since then, I have had a problem with giving money to charities. So when I want to help, I do it in a different way. And this may shake some feathers. People may not agree with me, but I am of the strong opinion there are other ways to help. For instance, Iceland sends people to Africa to teach them how to fish or how to build a well. Sending money themselves, unfortunately, a big portion of it ends up in the wrong hands, and maybe for guns or who knows what. So I think there are other ways. You have to, there's a saying, teach a man how to fish and they can fish forever, versus if you give them food for a day, well, they just had food for a day. So of course, this is my bad experience as a teenager. This planted the seed in me. But I do feel that there is a way to help and change society in a way that is not tainted in this way, and it feels good energy. So I feel good when people decide to invest in themselves because they have made a choice to make a change. Now, if somebody doesn't have the money, what can they do? Let's say they have no money and they still want to make a change. Well, there are so many ways how you can offer your services for free to someone. We have ample of samples of people becoming famous now. one example, let's take Gary Vee, the videographer that follows him around the world. That guy sent him an email and said, I would like to film you for one day because I feel he felt it was his mission to showcase this entrepreneur, what he does during the day. I'll do it for free. I just want to kind of follow you for a day, and you get the footage and video and you get everything for free. And I think he probably did it for more than a day. Maybe it was a whole week. Well, Gary Vee, being an entrepreneur like he is, spotting when it's time to say yes and when it's time to say no, he said yes to the guy. The guy has now worked with him for 2-3 years, follows him around the world, and creates these daily V shows. I think almost anyone, we have, of course, examples where people just don't have food or live in a place where it's not possible. But I would say for most of the world, this is still possible to offer your services and then go and change the world. And I listened to a great talk. Now, unfortunately, his name doesn't come to my mind. He is a professor at Harvard University, and he comes from Bangladesh. And he also said it's not the right thing to send money to Bangladesh to help the people. But what he did, he went and set up a mobile phone company and made it really affordable for people to get a mobile phone. And maybe you can get a phone for $25 or something. It's like really, really, really cheap. And he said just one phone in one community of people suddenly creates businesses for everyone. So let's say a woman owns a phone, $25. She rents out time with the community. And it's like, he said, this has much better impact, the entrepreneurship, versus if you just kind of give money to this community and say, well, I need to fund you through. He's putting up electricity and he's kind of bringing them up to another level with that entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So for those change makers that are listening now and that have this idea and that don't know where to start, or that are at the point where they need to go to the next step, what's going to make them successful?
Talk to as many people as possible, face to face.
Sorry?
Talk to as many people as possible, face to face, about your idea. There is going to be someone who buys into the idea and thinks that's great. Now, is that person your client? Maybe not, but they know someone that knows someone. I talk about this idea of lifestyle entrepreneurship and changing your passion into profits. And I also talk about, I don't want to help companies. I don't want to help startups. I have made it very clear who I want to help. I want to help these people that truly have passion and mission to make it profitable. Now, when you feel so strong about your idea, and when you talk face to face to people, or on Zoom or Skype or Be Live, people feel it, and you just talk to as many people as possible. The biggest danger I see is to say, oh, I want to change the world, and then you just sit there and hope somebody will come to you and I don't know, give you money to do it or whatever. That's not how it works. We have to put in the work. And if it's not about building a business, selling something, but you're more like being an influencer, well, are you a type of a person that is an influencer? So I did the Strength Finder test. I don't know if you've done it. Have you done the Strength Finder test?
I'm not sure. Is that the test where you're the ENFP?
No, that's Myers-Briggs. So Myers-Briggs, the ENFP, whatever. Strength Finder test. Actually, you can check if you're an influencer, and you get your 5 top strengths when you do the test. But you can pay extra money, I think $89 or something, and then you get all the Strength Finders. It's called Strength Finder. It's from Gallup. It's a highly regarded test. And you have to get all your strengths. And I think there are 36 or 37 strengths. So you have to get the full test. When you do it the first time, you just get 5. And then you have to pay something extra to get whole 5. Yeah. Sure. And when you get the whole 5, you can map it. So there is areas of strategic, execution, relationship, and influencer. Mm-hmm. And I did this test about a year ago, 1.5 years ago, and I went to a strength finder coach to kind of analyze it, because I didn't have the categories, but you can pretty much Google this now. And turned out I have a little bit strategy, I have a little bit execution, relationship, but influencer is full house. So she said, I know your vision of, changing the world, making women believe that they can turn their passion into profits. You have a full house in influencer. So influencer means I need to talk. I need to, So figuring out where your strengths are. If you are wanting to change the world and you are not strong and influencer yourself, you got to find an influencer. You got to partner with someone who can do it. So in my case,
if you're good at execution, but you're not good at strategy, or if you're, ask for help. Basically, that's what you're saying. Know what you're good at, and ask for help with those things that you're not. Right?
Well, it definitely helps that, because if you are the change maker, you want to be strong and influencer yourself, ideally. But if for some reason you are not, then partner with someone else who is strong in it, and you can work closely with that person. Because in my case, since I'm so strong an influencer, I had no idea about this. So maybe I should have been a change maker and change the world. Become a politician.
You should have become a politician, Maybe
I should have become a politician, since I'm so. But now I can look at the strength finder, and when I'm hiring in my team, I need to find someone who is a finisher. I like to come up with new ideas. I need to help someone finish it, keeping deadlines and things like that. But it helps to definitely have that influencer element, because you somehow know how to talk to people, and you know it yourself. I think you probably have that influencer too. You can do the strength finder test and figure it out. But it's the element of getting the buy-in of the people. So let's say you go to a cocktail party and you're talking to a few people, and then they afterwards like, oh, it was so great to talk to Irene. I love her idea of changing the world. Then you are an influencer if you have that impact on people.
It's funny that you say that. It's very anecdotal, but I was in Brussels last week after maybe 2 years. Maybe I've been there once or something like that, since I've moved from working and living in Brussels to where I'm now in the Netherlands. And I did meet people that I hadn't seen for years, and they all felt like spoken to me last week. But I'm reading your emails, but I can send emails from 200 kilometers away. And people were like, oh, so what is she doing? So it's funny that you mentioned that. But can you? Okay, so I'm taking a few things from you. One thing is, start talking about your idea. That's something that came up yesterday as well. So make sure that people know about your idea.
Yeah.
The other thing is, basically be an influencer or pair up with someone. But can you develop those skills? Do you think that, because being an influencer, I think, means building a community, a fan base around you. It means having a clear message with which you can touch people. Tell me if I'm wrong, but is that things that you can learn, you think?
I think you can learn a few things, but the strength finder test, doing that, you don't change who you are. So for instance, my weakness is consistency, but I can conquer.
I understand why you create all these lists, and I'm like, oh my goodness, all these lists.
Because I can conquer my weakness by putting things in my calendar, by having lists, by having, for instance, my podcast, I had some errors in my podcast. So the episode for tomorrow is not ready. I have to record it after we talk because we had some technical issues. But I have a team of 3 people waiting for me to record the podcast, and then it's going to go live tomorrow. So putting both people and structure in place to conquer your weaknesses. Now, if you're not a natural influencer, you have to combat that with, let's say, a step-by-step guide. Okay, how do influencer works? But if it doesn't come naturally to you, you will figure out a way to do it this is nothing to do with introvert and extrovert. This is totally independent of that. We know a lot of Brené Brown. You would say that she's an influencer, right? Yes.
Well,
he's an introvert, so it has nothing to do with that.
No, and I think it's also about. I think you can. Yeah, I mean, it's always important to know what you're good at. But then again, I find that when I work with Changemakers, that there's always a way that works for you, or that you can always try to find something that does work for you. And then, so for example, I had Helen, she's also in the group. I was able to work with her over the summer, and she was really kind of with a technical bit, so I said, I think you need to do a little campaign to get some excitement, to build her fan base, etc. And I think you should do something with videos. She's an actor by profession. She's given trainings the past 20, 30 years, I don't know. So she is, she's a natural speaker, I can learn from her. And she was really struggling with the technical bit. Ultimately, she did it, and, it's brilliant. But it's also trying to, at some point, I was looking at her, is there another way that can work for you? Because, if she's really too much struggling with it, and it's not going to happen. So it's find a way to make it work for you. And sometimes you need pushing yourself a little bit to, to do what you think you can't do.
That's why I don't think there's one path. I don't think there's one path to become an influencer or change maker. There's not like one straight path. I think it's understanding your strengths and how you can kind of overcome them. Like, for instance, I have all these templates and calendar entries and a team to help me. And also get your message out there every time possible. And then you have to figure out whether it's a video, whether it's a Facebook group. Like, that's more of a technical detail. But first you got to have the base and have people have buy-in from people and understand how you are going to influence and get your message out.
Yes. Now, I know that we did discuss this before, but I had a question, and I think it's very interesting, from one of the viewers this morning, Jetske. She said, okay, so, we're talking about turning your passion into profit, and basically your message is find a way to make money, even if it's not the core thing you want to do.
Yeah.
But giving you the money gives you the chance again to really go for, what really your mission is.
Yeah.
And also understand the value of money, because if somebody pays you to help you, they're more invested, they're more engaged, or I don't know how to say it otherwise. But then again, there's also sometimes a little hesitation, or people want to first see it, or they don't know exactly what you're offering, especially if you're a change maker, you're doing something different. Nobody else has done it before. Nobody really knows what it is. So you need to talk a lot, but also sometimes people need to experience. So how about if you come up with a workshop, or if you help out people, how about not asking a certain amount yourself up front, but really saying, okay, please join us, and you tell you, and you pay afterwards what you think it's worth?
I'm not a fan of that. Not a fan of that. What can happen is that people pay you much less that is actually worth, even to them. So let's say I do a workshop or a course and I thought it was highly valuable, but then instead of charging me $500, it's up to me what I pay. I would never pay $500. I would pay 100 or something. I think it's just in our natural element of, and because I'm paying afterwards, after I've seen all the content, I was not invested from day one into doing it. I feel when somebody buys a course or program, they are invested from day one. What even can happen when I hired my first business coach, it was a lot of money for me, put on my credit card, and I was like, whoa, I hope this turns out well. And I got clients before we started to work together. You know, this period between paying and starting to work with a business coach, I was already invested. I was already looking for ways. I was talking differently. I showed up differently. I felt I had now invested in myself and I was ready. I was going to make this work. Now, if I have a free course that I've signed up for, let's say the course starts after 2 weeks, I know the course value is $500, but I'm getting it for free. And then I can just pay whatever it helps me with. I'm not going into the course with the same energy. I'm not invested. What has worked well in software is to, pay a certain fee. I know there's a guy who develops a lot of plugins that I've bought for my Lightroom software. And then he said, oh, you can pay whatever you want, but minimum is $10. So most people pay $10. But you often have to tell them what it is worth. So no, I'm not a fan of it. I do not suggest it. I know some people do it. It may or may not work for them, but I just know the human element of how we work as human beings. If we don't know upfront what the investment is, our effort, energy, the work we put in it, it's just not going to be the same.
Okay. So before I close this off, unless Sigrun, you have something very important that needs to be said, I want to make sure that everybody is on now and who still has a question. I see a wonderful comment, by the way. It'd be nice also for you, Sigrun, to let you know. Diana says, what they do, I can do too. That's from the beginning. That's the reason why I managed to graduate, although my family and friends did not expect it. I did it myself. It's a bit your story in the sense of, like she being the first to actually do that. Yeah. And Diana says, I realize I have to go back to that attitude. I think you should, Diana. I really think she should. Diana is definitely an influencer in the village that she lives in, both as a politician and as an entrepreneur. There's nothing in her village that goes around duurzaamheid, sustain that is like green project that's there that she wasn't involved. So yes, Diana, go back to that. Back to that attitude.
Strength Finder 2.0 is the name. It's a whole company now. Just the strength test is just a whole company, even separated from Gallup now. I used to be a Gallup test. And yes, I absolutely love it. I've done it twice, because I thought, will the test change? But it doesn't change much, even if there was 8 years apart. It's pretty much, you are the way you are, but there's nothing bad or better about like how you turn out. Like when I saw that consistency was the lowest, basically a weakness, I'm like, oh, no, you have to be consistent to be an entrepreneur. Oh, I will be a failure. I'm like, no, how was I able to do weekly webinars for 2 years? Well, because I had it in the calendar and I'm a responsible person and I promised my audience I would do it. So then I do it. So your weakness doesn't have to be a weakness, but you have to know your strengths, because when you put up people around yourself, you got to know who to hire or just work with.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be great if indeed we can put that link in. Sigrun, I would really like to thank you very much. We've been working for the past 8 months, I think. It was quite a roller coaster for me, but it's given me more insights into my what I want to achieve with this community and how I want to inspire them, just like you do with yours. So I would really, really like to thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Irene. It's been a pleasure.
Je keek of luisterde naar Changemakers TV en podcast. Fijn dat je erbij was. Laat vooral even weten wat je ervan vindt door een like te geven of een reactie achter te laten. Wil je niks missen van deze serie met inspirerende leiders die zich inzetten voor een positieve verandering in de wereld? Abonneer je dan even. Be the change.